Alright, good morning. We're going to take a look at Raytheon Technologies Corporation. Just really briefly, let's look at some of the technicals here and just see what we're looking at. Just to go over a brief overview. I know this is, well, looks like it's under electronic technology, aerospace and defense. Yeah, so this is a military company, Raytheon, and yeah, you can see sometimes, well, I think I was actually... Well, anyway, innovation sometimes comes from the military-industrial complex, right? So, this what I would think about this is, yeah, this is the military-industrial complex, right? So we got a market cap of 53 billion. They're not a small company. And yeah, so this is more or less. I would imagine that Raytheon's going to be profitable when we go to war. Well, I guess there's been quite a bit of war. Especially, I guess, since 2001. I guess we had some build-up before that, so maybe it's not completely, you know, identical to when it's at war or whatever, but that's what this company is about. We can see it's got a positive uptrend here. So overall, doesn't look like the most horrible, or historically, right? Historically, before it would have been drawn like that, but now... considering we'll have to be a little bit more forgiving. So on here, I have already drawn a little bit of this Elliot Wave here, and just to recap, typically during the bull run, we're going to have patterns like this. And yeah, you don't have to always draw this, but this is typically the premise of Elliot Wave theory. So it's not all proportionate right here, but yeah, you can say that from a correction, an ABC correction wave, we'll have the 5 waves up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we'll have the correction, and then we'll have another 3 waves up, another 5 wave structure up. And this is never verbatim, but you could say, like, if you want to look at textbook bull run, that's what you should expect. And it's just reverse for the bear run. The 5 waves down, the ABC correction up. So, just looking at that really briefly, I was just kind of having some fun, and practice makes perfect, right? So, when you're drawing these kind of things, I mean, looking on a monthly scale, I was trying to more or less see if we had any superstructure, or see if there's a big wave pattern within this month-to-month time frame. Every time that you zoom it in, it's gonna make you challenge your current estimation, if that is truly a wave 1, if that's truly wave 2, if that's truly wave 3, and so on and so forth. But I think you can see the value here of generally looking at the frame of these charts, the skeleton, so to speak. So sometimes you can just expect, I mean, even within like a positive upswing, there's going to be pullbacks, because that's how these waves work, right? And each one of these, let's go back to the Russian doll analogy, right? So just back to this. Each one of these, let's just draw this a little bit more proportionate. Let me just delete this. So I'm just going to zoom in here so that we can actually get a little bit more room to take a look at. But if I'm going to draw it proportionate, it's more like this. So one of the rules is that wave 3 from 2 to 3 can never be the shortest. It's often the longest, but never the shortest. So that's one thing that is probably bread and butter. But my point being is that wave 1 will consist of 5 waves always. Same with this one right here. When we're looking at that Russian doll type of analogy, like here's another point to prove it. And these correction little waves right here are just ABCs. So they're ABCs like this. And that's how it starts becoming pretty messy, but you could expect that within every one of these waves one up, you should be able to draw another 5 wave structure within it. So going from the bigger time frame, you have to draw the big one and then work within the big one. But you can see that each one of these structures does have somewhat of an ABC connotation, and that can make you a little bit more, let's say, confident that that's truly the end of the structure. So I could look at here and I could say, well, where's my 1, 2, 3 pattern? I mean, that doesn't look too perfect just in this sense. So maybe I misrepresent. Maybe that's misrepresentation right there, and maybe it's actually, let's say, right here, and then it's actually okay. Well, that looks a little better, like so. This ABC structure, but what's this looking like? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean, maybe that is okay. But now, look at what we're playing with. The wave 3 here is now starting to look like it's the shortest of the lot, and that couldn't be it. So this is either not going to be. Maybe that's more like right here now. Okay, but then now that doesn't really look like an ABC. So I think you can see the complexity and the use case of this kind of thing. Again, this is just more kind of fun. It's not fun. It's very applicable. I mean, you can see how it kind of works really well. But now, when you see an ABC structure in here, what are you actually seeing? What part of what size are you seeing, right? I mean, so sometimes you truly do see, the pattern, but sometimes you don't realize, is it just like a corrective 1, 2, 3 within a bigger pattern, or are we following a much larger pattern up here? So I would say that this is pretty clear right there. Same with right here, but then it starts getting a little bit muddy. So it's a little bit tough. So I'm just going to delete all this, but what I was trying to do was see if I could come up with a little bit more of a crystal clear kind of wave pattern structure to see where we are on this super cycle. From what I was drawing there, I mean, we could be pretty close to the top. Now, I'm not sure if like this little bit right here, if these count as corrections. I mean, they don't look like a correction in this sense right here, especially from 1969 to, well, it was almost 10 years, right? We almost had 10 years where Raytheon was in a pretty notable, let's say, market correction, right? And a pretty big cup right here, right? Going through that whole contraction so it can expand again. Out of here. So anywhere that is similar, I mean, there's some brief moments. I mean, there's some little cups here, but maybe that's a little bit of one right there. I mean, but nothing to this extent right there. So, and just in a sense of proportion, there could be a bigger downturn in this company. I mean, it could. Don't take me for verbatim right there, but you can see here's a little cup right there, and maybe a little one right there. What do we got right here again? So are these all just ABC patterns, more or less, as it continues to come up? ABC, and then we start the new wave. I can't really say right there, but anyway, just to try to, that's what you're really seeing, right? You're seeing the corrective wave of the Elliot structure, and then it sometimes forms like a cupish type of visual, and a lot of times it has a couple of these upswings within it. But knowing that that's how waves work, you could assume that when we have a downward move, there's going to be a B wave and then the C, right? So and then this B wave right here is going to consist of ABC within it, and then these ones, the bigger ones, are going to have 5 waves within it. So this longer wave here, add 5 waves down, and vice versa right here too. So that's what happened right here at the beginning. That's kind of clear to me. And yeah, Elliot Wave sometimes is the best in hindsight, right? And there's infinite charts that you can play with. And this is only really applicable when we're going up or when we're going down. When we're going horizontal, these waves don't really mean too much. But I have to admit that for me, I'm always learning about it too. So when we look at, so say we pull up a picture like this, and this might give us a better look here, right? So we have a couple different extensions here, right? So we talked about there's 5 waves, but often there's one of the waves is extended. So here we got the first wave is extended. We got a bigger wave structure right there. Here the third wave's extended. Right here we have the 5th wave extended, and extended not identified. So you can see how it just kind of, when I was trying to draw that end there in Raytheon, like, yeah, did we have some type of freak extended? We had some type of extended 3rd or 5th wave in there. And I think this will just give you a little bit of an estimation that, okay, yeah, I can see they go in 5 waves. But typically, one is always extended. You can see here, wave 3 is never the shortest, right? It's shorter. It's not shorter than this. Wave 3 here, it's not shortest. Right here, it's not shorter than 1, right? So that's basically your golden rule. Wave 3 can never be the shortest. That is the one stipulation. So you have to just always take that into consideration. And a couple diagrams like this can really highlight that point. So I have a whole bunch of these things because I like to learn. Well, that's not very good for educational purposes here, but you can always look up this stuff on the the internet. You can just say, hey, what is this leading diagonal? But yeah, now you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And it's just this is talking about an A wave probably, and yeah, they just kind of give you a highlight that, hey, this stuff gets more and more in depth. That there's never too little to learn. So here's another little structure. You can see it bouncing around, and yeah, the more you learn about these patterns, sometimes they can just serve as a rough like background to say, hey, here's a nice one here. It's kind of small, but here we got 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we had a 5 here, and that didn't really, it's a bull market failure, and then we have this correction. So knowing that it kind of runs in this cycle, and you see something like that, there should be some valuable information there. And that one in particular right here, this bull market failure, like that's going to be what's that ticker? Let's look at Aurora Cannabis here, because I thought that this one had a pretty good just be like, man, yeah, that's pretty good, isn't it? I mean, so let's just do 1, 2, 3, 4, and well, you could say 5, right? I mean, but I think it was actually like this and like that, and we had this 3rd wave extended. Okay, that's what it was. So that's how you can see how you can get confused with it, but this is what it really was. It was 1, 2, an extended 3rd wave right here, and now we have this 5th. So to not get faked out right there, you would probably have to do that more finite, let's say Elliot wave count right here, and just be like, oh, that doesn't make sense. This must be an extended 3rd wave. And right here, we could see that that's truly what happened here. You know, we had a bull market failure, we had this big bull run, and you can see the consequence, right? An utter dump right down here. Okay, so this is how this stuff can give you an indication, like, oh crap, we just we couldn't keep going with the higher highs right there. And I guess right here, if you wanted to use momentum and stuff, you could kind of get an inclination that, hey man, we're starting to roll over here, right? We're starting to roll over. Momentum's rolling over. The price is still hovering here. It's time to get the hell out of here. Alright, back to Raytheon. So with this one here, I'm not saying it's similar, identical to Aurora Cannabis. I mean, we don't have the same kind of momentum or anything like that. I mean, we could see that we're on a negative downturn here in that aspect. So it wouldn't be crazy to see a little bit more downplay in the price. I wouldn't expect it just to jump back up. Right here, we just had a clear cross to the downside, so in those senses, I mean, who knows what we're looking at here, right? I mean, it's not crazy that after you see such a run like this, after like, and this is even longer than a lot of companies, right? From 1975 to 2020, like, how much longer can it go up without a little bit of a flattening, right? We could say right here it had a little bit of a flattening. Maybe right here a little bit. I mean, are we just going to keep surging on? I mean, I guess it's tough to say. I'm not sure how much, let's say, that this is actually, profits are tied to wars. I can't say that for sure, but it looks like this company is getting hit during the economic downturns too. So in 2008, it looks like we had a nice little dump right there. Also in 2001, we had a little dump right there. So it looks like it's not impervious to the general market cycle, and looks like we formed a little bit of a cup there and also right there, and we continued back on. So I imagine like the military industrial complex isn't going anywhere, so I imagine we're going to see something like this and then another continue on to the downside, to the upside. But we have to be also aware that you know, is it a time, I don't know, like, our country's going to start going to war? I mean, you think that would be the last thing during a pandemic, but I think it would be in a couple of years to come still. I mean, you could say that the crash of the 1920s and 30s probably created the depression and the conditions to start the world wars, right? I guess I don't know too much about that. Something to think about, I guess, right? For yourself personally. But right, yeah, you can see that I'd imagine that we're going through some type of correction phase here, and I'd also be kind of wary about just seeing how much movement we've had without like a bigger correction here. And this was a 10-year correction right there, right? It's tough to say, are we going to continue to move up? For me, this isn't really... Well, let me just take a couple more glances at this before I take a big look. So 2008, we've lost 50% of its value before it started marching back up. 2001, same kind of thing, 50% of its value, then it started marching back up. What we got here, 56% of its value. Is it just going to march back up, right? I would say that it's pretty darn rare for a Raytheon to be coming close to this 200 monthly moving average. I mean, that would be probably a relatively fair price, you could say. Like right here, we had one touch. They got that bought up, and that was back in that 2009 crisis. And right here, I guess we are getting some support here. To look at it in this respect, so maybe there is a play here, you know. For me, I don't think I'd be jumping on it quite yet. I'd be kind of worried about this one, you know. Like, I'm pretty indifferent about this one. It's just how much of this can we actually have, right? And I don't want to be holding stuff into 10 years going through a market cycle. So this thing is somewhat losing some of its momentum here, though, and it has a good history of recovery, right? And it's a military company, so we'll see. Are we going to have a revolution of peace, or we'll see what the world brings, right? But let's just zoom this up a little bit more. Let's look on the weekly here, and looks like we have like started to move back a little bit. We have a little bit of a flattening right here. You can always play these kind of breakouts. It's too late now, but just so you can pull this up a little bit more. Yeah, I mean, there's always trades to be made, right? I mean, and I'm not a super good day trader, but it's interesting when you watch other people trade, and seeing like this is a pretty good company, you know it's going to bounce. At least it's not going to go straight down forever. And when you do know that that's the case, like a lot of times people can play a lot of different things. I mean, you could say whatever angle you want it to play, like that'd be probably a pretty, I'd say that's almost probably too tight. You're going to miss out a lot there, but you want to have a couple touches. This is probably more of a shorter day trade here, an intraday trade, because I don't like that angle that I'm drawing here for you guys. So I'm just going to see if we can pull it up to like a 3 hour and see if it made a little bit more sense. Right here could have been an interesting little setup, and I learned this from someone else. So basically, when you know that we're having this downtrend, we got a double bottom here, one bottom, two bottom, which kind of gives us what this is saying is that the buyers stopped it right here, and then we came down again, which a lot of these other places we kept on falling through. So right here could have been the same setup if we held, right? If we held, but right here is actually where we got held up. So we held, the buyers supported it, we came back up, the bears bought down, and guess what? The buyers decided that they're gonna step in here again, which is kind of a sign of confidence, right? Which is maybe an idea that, hey, we got a double line of support here, we have this short-term trend line coming down, we have it actually break through the trend, the short term, and we create a higher high, and then we create a lower low, and this is where, right here, this is where sometimes people might be entering into a position right there. So once we have confirmation 1, confirmation 2, confirmation 3, confirmation 4, confirmation 5, now this is looking like a pretty tradable pattern, because, well, what this is actually doing is, right, probably you're trading that B wave, maybe, right here. So that's maybe more for experienced traders, but you can kind of see the setup, right? And then right here, when we start looking at that, once we have the 1 confirmation, the 2 confirmation, we break through the short-term trend line, we get the higher high, which breaks past, let's say, the short-term little resistance right here. Then we get the higher low right here, the higher low. Now, you're never guaranteed on something like this, but as we form the next bar here, let's say the 3 hour bar, you can always just pull it up a little bit more and say, yeah, as we form this higher low, you could say you could definitely enter in a position right here with the stop loss right there. And yeah, you can go for something like 2 to 1. Anyway, I thought that was a pretty cool little pattern, and I mean, not that I use it at all, but hey, that's just the kind of information that it's nice to see this, because guess what? This can apply to anything, right? This could be a month trend, right? And see a double bottom, break of the trend line, a higher high, higher low, and then you can get that little rise, right? And I can just quickly take a look at this so sorry about going around, but yeah, I don't know if there's too much copyright going on right now, but I think that anytime that you share someone else's content, I mean, it can't be too bad. But this is someone that I seem to learn a lot about day trading, because I don't day trade that much, but he's got so much good input. Like, he's kind of cut and dry, no sugar to be added, but I mean, I seem to learn a lot of different things here. So here he talks about just the main stages in a bubble, and the takeoff, the bear trap. Here's where I got into, you know, some things, and yeah, I think that yeah, he's worth listening to. I would definitely say that. Goes through some of these bigger market cycles, some of these things, and I think I'll leave it at that. But there's micro stages too, right? And I think right here I learned a lot as well. And yeah, here's that chart that I was talking about. So he goes over this in pretty good detail. He sees this downward trend right there. Gets that double bottom. So you could say here, look at it, there's an A, B, and then a C, right? And then he's playing that first wave up. So he sees, we got a double bottom, we got a higher high, a higher low, and then he kind of plays that breakout. He plays like these bars, but regardless, he's doing it on a 30-minute chart. Knowing these patterns on a monthly chart still has a lot of value. And he goes through a couple different other ones here, but I'm just going to exit out of that because I'm not trying to go over that kind of investing. But you always want to learn what you don't know, and for me, that's someone that I watch and seem to pick up a lot of tidbits from. So anyone willing to share that information, I'm more than happy to learn. Or at least listen. You don't have to take anyone's opinion as absolute, right? So here, you never know what we're quite looking at, right? Looking at some of that other stuff, but you could say, yeah, we came down, we had a double bottom, we had this higher high, higher low, and you know, you could have played that. You know, if there was a pretty good couple bar setup, maybe there was something worth checking out. But yeah, I don't really play those let's call them B waves, so to speak. But it's tough to say what is B, what is C, right? I mean, what's going on here? But regardless, I mean, sorry to confuse people, but stocks can be confusing, and that's why they're so in-depth. That's why you should be humble about how much you actually don't know too much. But here, Raytheon, we could have said here, we had a nice little buy symbol right there after we seen that huge decline in momentum. Guess what? We knew that we had, look at, you got a double bottom. We have the momentum ticking back over. We have the MACD crossing over. We have historical significance that Raytheon has not dropped more than 56% in its past and history over the last literally 50 years, right? We've seen that support on that monthly trend line right there. Yeah, it's not. I wouldn't say it would be a crazy play to invest in some Raytheon right now. I mean, if you wanted to be a little bit more cautious, you might want to wait a little bit longer, as you can see that we'll have some downturns and then some upturns too. This was really quick, right? This 56% was over a lot longer time frame, right? This was just like immediate. That's what makes me a little bit more cautious here. I think right now is a very important time to be very cautious in the market, because you never know how big these patterns could be, right? We just have this crossover here. We just have this crossover here. This could go a couple of different ways, right? We could see it something like this in the past, where this correction could take let's say 43 bars. 43 months, 40 months, 3 years, right? So I'm not really looking at something right now like this for me to get in on, but I imagine Raytheon will be around in 10 years. It probably will be. It's performed pretty good historically. It is touching some of these big supports, so it could get supported up pretty quick. But looking at this month-to-month sense, I mean, it's either it could be a pretty good play. You know, I'm pretty indecisive about this one. I wouldn't have it as a major proportion of any portfolio, but if you want a little bit of exposure to this, I mean, now's a better time to buy than it was before, right? So in that sense, there might just be better times to buy. Like, you know, this might just be something drawn out for a while. There might be a lot of opportunity here, and for me, it's just it's tough because I'm pretty cautious right now with the market. You never know if this could be a pretty big one. So in that sense, I mean, stocks themselves, I'm kind of limiting my exposure to some extent to stocks themselves. I mean, I do a lot of the technical analysis because I like it, but how much stocks do I own? Well, I only own gold and silver ETFs right now. So that should tell you that I'm not in any of this, right? So for me, it's just a matter of, okay, is it going to be one of these short corrections? But also, is this the end of a huge super cycle, right? Are we looking for more of a correction like this, right? Right here. Are we looking for this type of correction, which was 10 freaking years, right? So there's a high probability that this could be a 5-wave structure up. This could be a pretty big cup here. Depends how long you want to wait and hold on Raytheon. It looks like we're still downward momentum to get into here, but there might be buying opportunities here, right? If you want to have a little bit of diversity in here, maybe you want to add some positions over the next years into this company, because it might be a good place to add to as it consolidates somewhere right in here before it keeps on going up. But in terms of, is this maturing right now? Is the fruit coming ripe right now? I mean, I don't know. Right, we could still see it. This could not be the bottom, 42.67. We could still have, you know, some little rollover and still establish a deeper bottom around these places right here. It wouldn't be crazy to see something like that, right? Especially looking at this and being like, man, how much has this how much has this risen? Let's try to delete some of this so we can see where these levels actually are. So you could say, yeah, 0.618 would be around 34.52. Wouldn't be crazy. I mean, we're getting touches around the 0.5, so we'll see. I think I'll call it quits here with Raytheon, and yeah, I went a little bit longer than I thought, but hopefully it was interesting. Hopefully you have a good day. Thanks.